I don't have any other announcements this morning, which is kind of unusual for me, so that's great. Tricia Braun is the Deputy Secretary and the Chief Operating Officer for the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. She is a graduate of the University of Wisconsin in River Falls, and I must confess I'm going to have to look that one up. I've heard a lot about the UW system. I got to think about where that one is. But she has nearly 20 years of economic development experience in 3 different states, including Riverside, California, in Minnesota, and here in Wisconsin. She's been with the WEDC since November of 2013. She became the Chief Operating Officer in February of 2015. Now, we had the opportunity last spring to hear Tricia speak as the governor, and she announced the $6.8 million, I think it is, that the governor was spending to recruit people to come to Wisconsin to work. We have an incredibly low unemployment number in the state, and that actually means that we need more people because there's plenty of job opportunities in Wisconsin. So they started a program that I heard called InWisconsin, and Tricia did a wonderful job of presenting it last spring. She's added some things to it, which is what we expected, so we're glad to welcome her to the campus of Maranatha Baptist University. Come on up, Tricia, if you would. This is working. Life is good.
Very good. Thank you, Steve. And is this on? Can everybody hear me? Good. River Falls is in a section of the state that we call Minnesota. It's over by Hudson. It was kind of part of my great migration into being a full-fledged Wisconsinite. So thank you for having me here. We were chatting at the table about topics and presenting and whatever, and I can tell you that this is one of the most exciting things that I've been a part of in my economic development career, because it really resulted from a group of individuals just like yourselves, businesses, community members, civic leaders, economic developers, coming together around a singular issue. And that's one that's incredibly important to the state. It always has been, and we've always been known for it, and that is talent. When WEDC was formed in 2011, our mission was really predominantly, almost specifically, about business and business development and making sure that we were creating an environment where businesses could be successful and be thriving and growing and all of those great things. About 3 years ago, that conversation really started shifting because our businesses were saying they weren't going to be able to do that if we didn't do a better job of bringing more people into the state, retaining the ones that we have. And as we were looking ahead at the next 5, 7, 10, 15 years, that demographic shift, kind of coupled by what the Midwest was seeing, not just Wisconsin, but the Midwest, in migration patterns of people moving to warmer climates for some reason, it was starting to look a little bit scary. And so as we're, again, continuing to invest in businesses, we had to, at the same time, if not more aggressively than in business development, start talking about people. So to do that, we had to understand really what Wisconsin's challenges were, why people were deciding to move away outside of the weather conversation, or why people that were going to school here weren't choosing to stay and have their careers and their lives here in Wisconsin. And so we partnered with the Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce organization, who had started looking at this too and had done sort of some on the streets type interviews with college campuses, asking students where they plan to go after they graduate and why. And so many of them that were not from Wisconsin were giving us the reasons that we don't have the jobs that they're going to school for here, or we're just about dairy and ag and they're in finance or they're in IT. And it was really eye-opening to understand, we haven't done a good job talking about ourselves and talking about all of the really great things that Wisconsin is and should be known for, in addition to, those stereotypical things. So how do we do that? We need to have a platform that everybody could really start building this brand messaging on. Working with our young professionals across the state, primary target audience, just because of that age, that they're the early entry into the workforce, and so starting with that and building this message platform. So of that, Think, Make, Happen was born. And what the idea was between Think Make Happen is it's not just a WEDC brand platform, it's not just a Wisconsin brand platform, but it could be said about Watertown, it could be said about Oshkosh, La Crosse, wherever it is in the state. All of these elements that are going into this are true and credible and meaningful, and so it's something that could be shared. Since that was launched, we have seen this in action. It is being hashtagged on social media platforms. It's not just WEDC that's talking about it. We have a way now on which we can promote all of the assets that make Wisconsin a good place to have your career, to have your life, or to have your business. So now that we have this built, the next job was we have to go out and talk about this. So we did an official research project where we interviewed 2,800 individuals in Wisconsin, in the surrounding states, and then in the rest of the US, and then we broke that down by generational categories. Obviously, what you can see here is the overall findings of what people thought about Wisconsin, and none of that should be a surprise. We are cheese, dairy, Packer football, farms, good people, cold winters, but it doesn't say anything in here about really great jobs or iconic companies that are now global leaders in their industry. It doesn't say anything about great educational universities, technical colleges, K-12. So we have some opportunities to really educate people. So that was the next step. Who are we going to be talking to? Again, we want to make sure that this message and our efforts, because it's an investment, and to just do a broad net of marketing isn't probably going to be the most effective, or it could be very, very expensive with not as high of a return as we want. So we focused on those individuals that are in that phase of life where they are making decisions about where they want to have their careers, where they want to put their roots and get invested in their communities and their companies, whatever it might be. And so the three that you see here are millennials, our alumni that have had a Wisconsin experience already, and then transitioning veterans and families. And that last part, we've actually got some good feedback on, and I will, because we just launched the third part, the veterans part recently, so I'll get into that a little bit more in the presentation. So as Steve mentioned, the governor had announced an additional $6.8 million of state funding to go just into promoting Wisconsin to these target audiences. However, that was actually building on what WEDC had already launched in Chicago, targeting the Midwest millennials in that market. We have seen over the past couple of years, at an increasing rate, a migration from Illinois into Wisconsin. Now, everybody's kind of leaving Illinois, so we're trying to grab as much as we can. Let's just be real. So that is a low-hanging fruit. We had a targeted earmarked $1 million to go into one market in a Chicago market. That is an expensive place to advertise. So we wanted to be very specific about what we were saying, how we were saying it, and who we were saying it to. So if you think about what those pain points are, why people are leaving, what is impacting their quality of life in Chicago, that Wisconsin has to offer something different or better. And so what you'll see in some of these ad examples that I'll show you is that, talking about cost of living. So your house that you have in Chicago that might be cramped could actually be a family home. Or if you like the urban lifestyle, we have that too. But instead of your tiny little apartment, you can have a nice, expansive condo with possibly a view of one of our many lakes. And everything with this theme is all centered around the idea that in Wisconsin, you can have more you, more of what you love, more of what you want. That also is quality of life. So instead of sitting in traffic, whether you're on the 294 or some other congested freeway in Chicago, you could actually be out with your buddies on a paddleboard on Lake Monona or whatever body of water is close to you. So that was the first phase, and that wrapped up. We went January to June in that market, and again, what you saw there were social media ads, but we had placement ads on the L train. So as people were waiting in a congested train station, they were seeing these ads about, hey, in Wisconsin, you could be out having cocktails with friends, or you could be hanging out with your family or spending time with your kids. And then we had like in-place marketing in fitness gyms. We had ads in popular bars and restaurants. We had coasters that were branded with Wisconsin. So really trying to get in the face of the target audience when they were, really experiencing something. So with the additional money that was provided by the legislature, we were able to expand this and build this out. So knowing that these other markets that we were going to be going into didn't have that same pain point as Chicago, we had to look at how we were marketing Wisconsin a little bit differently. So again, we went back and did our homework. So we interviewed individuals in the Chicago market again, but then greater Illinois, parts of Iowa, parts of Minnesota, and asked them the questions. This chart that you're seeing right here was asking, how likely are you to move from your current city for a career or quality of life opportunity? And I don't know if you can see the cities that are up there, but on the high end of that, St. Louis, Chicago, which Champaign, Illinois, Detroit, Indianapolis, and Columbus were the highest. And then on the other end, you can see the breakdown as well. The next question we ask them is, when you're making these decisions, what attributes about a place are really important to you? And none of these should probably surprise any of us. Quality of life, work-life balance, career opportunities, low crime rate, education, low cost of living, evolving and improving outdoor activities, raise a family, natural resources, good weather, and cultural activities. And as you know, Wisconsin, I think, is pretty strong in all of them. However, when we asked those individuals that we were interviewing if they felt that was true about Wisconsin, they paint a different story than what we know to be true. So they ranked us pretty high for outdoor activities and natural resources and raising a family, but things like education, work-life balance, career opportunities, cultural activities, those are on the lower end. So it shows that, again, our messages have an opportunity to make a difference in those target audiences. Again, just kind of showing the performance gaps that we just talked about again. Those red squares are in that area that I just highlighted, the work-life balance, career opportunities, involving and improving. And that weather thing, we're gonna play on that, and we're gonna showcase our winters as being awesome with outdoor recreation opportunities and try to put a different spin on cold as much as we can. So taking that theme of that in Wisconsin, you can be more you, but now kind of trying to influence these that 25 to 40-year-old in these other Midwest markets, had to take on a little bit different spin, like I said. So some of these ads that you'll see, these are the concepts that we're rolling out. Right now, they're in the middle of shooting them and building out the full ad campaign, which is typically a wrap. So an example like this that says more campsites that don't require a reservation, showing kids camping in their backyard, that can be turned into a social media ad or a short little, that 5-second roll that you'll see on Facebook or on Instagram before something else pops up. So every one of these that you'll see will have multimedia applications associated with it. Next, more user experiences. Kind of showing that, like in the IT realm, that play on career and fun. More ways to shift gears after your shift is over. The work-life balance that Wisconsin offers, along with some pretty iconic industry. More chances to work in a clean room and play in a messy one. Again, trying to showcase that we have those highly technical careers, but we also have good work-life balance. More ways to balance high tech with high touch. More 5-star restaurants you can actually afford. More alternate uses for your smartphone. Outside of Wisconsin, it's surprising how many people have never heard of Summerfest. So and now we're getting an increasing amount of festivals and big music events, summer events, winter across the state. So really trying to get people to see all of these different offerings that we have in the cultural realm. So that, as I said before, those are being built out now. Some of them have actually started in place in certain markets, and the placement will vary. So if it's going into a Minneapolis or a Des Moines or a Chicago market, there will likely be more of that in-place experiential applications like the coasters or the health club ads. And then in the smaller markets where there's lower density, more of the social media kind of targeted ads will be showing up in those markets. So then the next, alumni. And this is another, what we think is low-hanging fruit. And I think I'm one example, and I was talking to my table, and I think there's many, but how many of us, after we went to college, here in Wisconsin potentially, moved away, and then realized we want to come back because we want, right? There's a lot of us that are saying that. So we want to speak to that crowd and just remind them how great of a time they had here when they were in Wisconsin, how good the people are, how good our schools are, because they've already had that. And so, and our employers are actually seeing, a lot of resumes that are coming from out-of-state resident or out-of-state applicants that have a Wisconsin education of some sort. So, building on this, obviously, we know we can retain our education. Well, Wisconsin actually does better than most when it comes to retaining our college graduates, but we want to be the best at bringing the other ones back. So there's only a few publications that actually offer like print publication advertising, so we're trying to take advantage of as many of those as possible, and some even do it on their own without kind of our involvement. They're trying to, for their own communities and the businesses in their communities, bring back the alumni into the area. So we'll be doing something similar with that. And then we're also doing this thing called Alumni Snapshots, and it's taking the stories that Wisconsin graduates have had about moving away or finding their career and their life here, so that it helps to kind of connect that story to other alumni. Again, there'll be video snippets, testimonials, but they'll also be then transitioned into multimedia platforms. So I'll show you just an example of a couple of those. Maybe.
In 2011, I graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee with my master's degree in architecture and immediately moved to Chicago to do something substantial. But I realized that I can make a bigger impact here in Wisconsin. In addition to the career opportunity, Wisconsin has a lower cost of living, which provides my growing family with a higher quality of life. All of those things make Wisconsin the place that I want to make home.
There's one more here.
I went to school at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. I graduated in 2006. One of the fundamental reasons that I stayed in the state was for the people. There were opportunities to go outside of the state. Illinois, New York, California, but none of them had really a sense of belonging, that sense of purpose, that sense of community, and that's what the people of Wisconsin really bring. There are so many opportunities to do so many cool things, and I just love to do all of those things with my family and friends.
So as you can see, what we've tried to do is build out a sample mix of these using UW, private college, technical college graduates, and sharing their stories about their experiences in having their careers and lives here in Wisconsin. We've stored all of these testimonials on our website so that people can see the mix of them. But then we're also asking or suggesting to folks that want to do this that this is just the samples, that we've kind of built the templates, but every community that has a university or a technical college can do their own, can build their own stories kind of off of this format so that they can showcase how people have found success back in the areas where they went to school. And so now the third target audience are transitioning veterans. About 200 to 250,000 military folks transition out of the military every year. And those folks and their spouses, which is, sometimes now at this point it's the spouse making the decision, not the enlisted individual. And so we want to really get in touch and work with the Hiring Our Heroes organization. It's sponsored by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And what they do is they host events at military bases around the world, actually, for these veterans that will be transitioning out of the military within the next 6 months. At these events, I think I've got a picture of it here. They have trade shows that companies, I think Oshkosh is at almost every single one, that hire veterans and recruit veterans can exhibit. They can have their recruiters there on site. They can can actually accept applications and resumes right at the base. And so we wanted to bring our team, and the team is the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Department of Workforce Development, and the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, all as a group to these events in a big way. We had our first event at Camp Pendleton about a week and a half ago. We've got 16 on the calendar, but Camp Pendleton was the first one. And it was such an overwhelming positive response because these folks that are going out of the military, they get one paid last move. And so where they want to make that move, they want to know that when they get there, they have a job. And so our team that's on the ground is talking to them about the job opportunities. They're walking through the website that shows the different areas and regions of the state, the quality of life, talking about the schools, talking about companies, and then actually helping them translate their military codes, which, to most of us who have not had a military experience have no idea what that means. And on the flip side of it, they're not really sure how that transitions into a normal job application or job posting. So we've got folks that are trained to do that and helping them connect to resources. So again, we've got right now 16 of these on the calendar. The schedule that we've selected was very specific and very intentional in that we wanted to make sure that we were at the bases that had a high percentage of vets that were going to be transitioning out of the area. Camp Pendleton, for example, down near San Diego, beautiful place, totally expensive, like crazy cost of living, right? And so as you're coming out of the military and getting started in your career, hard to find a job that fits in with the cost of living options that you have there. Other places, like Hawaii, just don't have the jobs that a veteran or a spouse would necessarily be looking for, so they will leave the area. A lot of overseas deployments where people are transitioning out that you'll see on here. The same reason. So what we want to do is making sure that we are connecting with those folks that are going to be making that choice of where to live. Similar theme through the messages about taking what they have and their values and their culture that they are aligned with and matching that to Wisconsin and showing that you can have still more of you here in Wisconsin. The pillars that we focus on are those that are important to veterans, especially at this point in their lives: career, education, not just for them, but also for their children, housing, community, and quality of life. Samples of ads that we have been building. Again, talking about careers, showing them that the training that they've received in the military has job options and career options here in Wisconsin. Again, education, highlighting that high quality education that we have. Here's a sample ad for that.
From Alpha Bravo Charlie to ABCs, your heart went into serving our country. Ours will go into teaching your kids. Wisconsin has some of the best public schools in the U.S., so you can be as proud of them as we are of you. Wisconsin, it's more you. From Alpha...
There we go. Community. So one of the things that we've heard from veterans as they transition out is that when they're in the military, they have a tight-knit community. They've got a brotherhood, sisterhood, and they've got this built-in network. So as they leave, it's a hard transition to not have that. So what we wanted to do is really show that they have the ability to be part of a community, part of something special. It's part of our fabric and what is important to us as Wisconsinites, and then that would be here for them as well. Not to mention, in Wisconsin, we have like a very connected veterans resource system. Every county in the state has a Veterans County Resource Officer. As far as state-funded veteran programs, we have more than any other state in the country. I think we are at 23. They're working on number 24 in terms of those benefits. And I think the next state is Minnesota or Michigan, and they're at 19. So we do really well in trying to serve our vets, but we haven't told that story very well. So we're working on that. Again, and quality of life, showing that they have served their time, they've done their duty, and now make sure that where they move, they have a chance to have some fun as well. So when we're at these events, and we've got our team there, and it's usually a 2-day, day and a half affair. So we'll have a combination of the people at the booth that are interacting directly with the military folks and their spouses. But then we'll also have people on panels talking about why Wisconsin, why we are talking to vets, why it's important to our companies, and what else we're doing as a state to make this a good choice for them. But then we'll also be putting marketing and in-place ads in their channels of communication, as well as social media around the events, geo-targeted ads, et cetera, things that are focusing on and featuring the samples that you've seen. So then as we, and I'm gonna just segue just a second here. When it comes to the veterans recruitment, one thing that we have learned, as this is all kind of new to us, and so we're making sure that we're improving every time that we go out to a new base or a new effort. We have kind of built a business engagement option. So if you are an employer that wants to hire vets, or you have a veterans program within your companies, we want you to be able to participate with us. So 2 things. One is the booths are free at the Hiring Our Heroes events. It does not cost to exhibit. It's your cost to get your stuff there and your people there and all of that, but there's actually not a cost to that. So if you've got a big enough presence, or you have a big enough appetite for that, encourage you to look at that. The other thing that you can do is, if you want to send an ambassador and be part of that Team Wisconsin, after we announced this earlier this month, or end of August, right around that same time, one of the places that we visited was WPS in Madison. And as part of that announcement, we had a Purple Heart Marine vet that was at Camp Pendleton for 17 years, and he said, I want to go, I want to help. I love Wisconsin, this has been incredibly great for me, originally from Texas, and I want to be helpful in telling Wisconsin's story. So that was on Friday. He was on the ground in Camp Pendleton on Tuesday, and just had raised his hand and said, I want to be there. And hearing from a vet like that, who apparently is a legend in the sniper community, and so has a lot of respect and very high regard from the military folks, was really special. So if you have individuals like that, or if you're a company like that, there's an opportunity for you to participate in one or all. We'll also be doing kind of what we call sidecar events at some of these. So potentially after the day of the first session, we'll be hosting reception at maybe like a Packer bar in the area, or some restaurant where companies can come and network face-to-face. Wisconsin companies can come and network face-to-face with some of the folks that have been interested, or that we were able to talk to during the day, just really kind of starting to build that relationship and show the Wisconsin way, essentially. So there's a website that you'll see later in here that you can write down, otherwise I'll give you my email at the end too. So where is this all going? Where are we sending all of these folks that we're marketing to? We've reskinned our WEDC website. We no longer have that in place. We actually transitioned everything over to kind of a boring WEDC.org that has all of our business, program information and all of the stuff that some of you may be interested in, but probably not people that are looking at moving here to Wisconsin. So and then we put all of our fun stuff on InWisconsin.com, showing beautiful pictures of the state throughout the state every season, and giving them the hands-on tools to decide where they want to live.
Invention, industry, integrity, passion, persistence, pride, collaboration, commitment, character. The map may sketch the outline of our state, but not our boundaries. The potential of our state is measured in the people who live and work here today, and by those who will someday call it home.
You are on the edge of something new, and you're able to help write that narrative here and help define Wisconsin.
Wisconsin is shaped by its people as surely as any force in nature, and the impact of Wisconsin is felt worldwide. Potential lives at the forefront of scientific inquiry and propels us to still greater things to come. From our tradition of agriculture comes advances in food science that feed the world, not simply to provide nutrition, but to add flavor and zest. The freshwater stewardship that was born in our breweries has risen to answer tomorrow's global challenge of water conservation and sustainability. From medical advances to information technology, community, and culture, Wisconsin exports more than products. We deliver the work ethic and dedication of our people.
Now is a time of renaissance. We're seeing neighborhoods figure out how do they tie back into successful economic development in Wisconsin.
Along the streets of our cities and the avenues of our towns, people from different states and different countries all find their home in Wisconsin. But that doesn't mean they settle down. Their restless drive continues to keep our schools and universities outstanding, our businesses growing, and our people in action. The energy to create, entertain, and enjoy is demonstrated by the nation's largest music festival, the ultimate cross-country ski race, and more than 4,000 miles of world-class bike paths, hiking trails, and pristine lakeshore to keep everyone in Wisconsin making a life, not just a living. And that energy is constantly renewed and transformed with each generation. That transformation is happening now.
I'm a strong believer that if you can think of it, that's the hardest part of making anything happen, really. The rest is just going and doing it and finding the resources to help you pull it off.
as curiosity steps boldly over old boundaries, and ideas are welcomed into every boardroom, makerspace, coffee shop, and classroom. We tap into potential that we know is here, and seek the unseen potential yet to come.
So there you kind of get the gist of the message that we're trying to convey on the website. So one of the things that we put into this site that hadn't existed before we were working with a company called Global Finishing Solutions. They're based in Osseo, Wisconsin. So over kind of towards, you're heading up towards Chippewa Falls or Eau Claire. And they were doing a lot of out-of-state recruitment for engineering talent, engineering technicians, et cetera. But said their challenge wasn't so much about promoting their company or promoting their company culture. It's that people had no idea where Osseo was, had no idea about what was in the region, how beautiful it was. And so we built out regional pages. So what you can't see here, if you go to the actual website, there's a map and it has concentric circles that highlight various regions of the state. Then people can take a deep dive down and look specifically into that area of the state. Companies that are there, communities, the larger communities that are there, different quality of life. They can get networked and see the social groups like the chambers, young professional groups, whatever it might be, all specific to that area. Also in here now with these other two very specific target audiences, we've built out pages just to direct that traffic. So the ads that you saw that had alumni featured will go to our InWisconsin.com/alumni. Same with veterans, InWisconsin.com/veterans. Well, they'll see the programs that the state offers, the 23 out of the 26. They'll see different testimonials, and they'll have connections to both the search functions for searching for a home. All of these actually have that. But then specific to the veterans, it'll go to the WISC, jobsforvets.com, and that's where they can enter in their military ID, and it will kind of spit back the jobs that are somewhat associated or aligned with what that military degree is. Cool story from, there's this ad. Cool story from Pendleton. One of the individuals went up to Steve Yonke, who's with our Department of Veterans Affairs, and said, there's no way my military code is going to have any jobs that are in sync with it in Wisconsin. And Steve asked, well, what do you do? He's like, well, I'm in like logistics or something. He goes, oh no, you're going to have it. I guarantee it. Enter in your code. He entered it, and there were 600 job listings that came back with his military code. So he's like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. So definitely seeing that there are a lot of opportunities for folks in this state. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions. I understand there's time for that, right, Steve?
Sure. Who has a question? No, you need the microphone. We're recording.
I was just wondering with marketing, because we have a lot of people from Illinois and Minneapolis area and that they vacation to Wisconsin. So, some of those cities that, a lot of people vacation in, are you, or is this, being posted in that area at all or no?
Actually, thank you for asking me that question because it reminds me that I was remiss in saying that one of the other partners that we have in this campaign is the Department of Tourism. So while they're not actually boots on the ground with us at Camp Pendleton, they're very much part of this process. For example, when the two of the veterans that were on site in Pendleton came home, the Department of Tourism was hosting the Badger Game Day and had the three of us there talking about veterans and why they're important to Wisconsin as part of their Veterans Game Day Facebook Live. And in addition then are actually spinning earned media opportunities in some of the more rural areas, not rural, but touristy areas of the state. And so absolutely trying to leverage that. It's really a team effort. Good question, thank you.
All right, who else? Here you go.
Hello. So you have the highest retention rate of your Wisconsin alumni, and I will soon be, hopefully, in a couple of years. But so my question is, despite that, what are some challenges that you have with alumni who do not decide to stay?
So I think there's a couple of things, and I don't know if I'd call them all challenges, but after after, I want to say, it's not just kids, but I feel old and so I say kids, but when they graduate, a lot of people want to have an experience somewhere else, right? Like they want to go explore, maybe even live in a different part of the world, not just in the country. And so there's that natural, I want to go do something different for a little while, get away from mom and dad or whatever. And then, after time, and this is, similar to my story, and I think others, there comes that, I kind of miss what I had in Wisconsin, so it's calling that back home. And the other side of it, to answer your question, is that if you're not from Wisconsin, you don't necessarily know about the opportunities that are here. Well, maybe even if you are from Wisconsin. So that goes back to that, really showcasing the careers that we have here in the state, and that you can find really good IT jobs in Wisconsin, and you can find really good finance or even engineering, whatever it might be. I can't think of a career we don't have here or don't have an opportunity for. So it's just helping to make those connections more than we have been.
Wisconsin is a big manufacturing hub, so other than the professionals, what is being done for those technical folks or the manual labor positions?
Did everybody hear that what she asked? Okay, so in addition to all of this that's being done to market the state for attraction and retention purposes, this is on top of, I want to say, about $340 million that's been invested over the last 2 bienniums in other workforce-related efforts. Much of that goes through the Department of Workforce Development, doing things like recruitment skills training, helping our technical colleges build programs for their communities, working with manufacturers on specific programs for industries, whether it's welding or a number of things I can't think of right now, but for the manufacturing jobs. WEDC has, I think we're going to do our 4th year of the Fabrication Lab Grant Program, where we are providing grants to K-12 schools to put fab labs in their schools, and buying the equipment like the CNC routers or the 3D printers or whatever it might be, and then partnering with Stout, who then helps to train the trainers. So using the MIT-based education so that kids are learning how to create, how to design, how to build, how to problem solve, even like cost manage in some of these cases. So helping to build in our K-12 schools skills that are aligning with those jobs that our manufacturers are going to need in the next 5, 10, 15 years. Even creatively kind of thinking outside of the box, there have been training programs put into our correctional institutions so that employers that are in that area are getting trained employees as they're coming out and, once they get into a job and have a stable kind of income, the recidivism rate is a lot lower, and they can also have a productive life. So I can't think of a workforce program that we haven't invested in, but that's incredibly important as well. So it's definitely an and. It's not just this, it has to be the other two. Good question.
Hi, so I'm curious what kind of support you have gotten from businesses, bigger companies in Wisconsin to want to come and partner with you guys and help you draw more people back here.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that because most of this was created or started because those businesses were saying we need help, we needed to do something more in our efforts, and so incredibly supportive. We've had roundtables of companies and regions. I think Eau Claire had one, Sheboygan had one, where some of the, I think, more well-known name companies would say, okay, how do we take what you've done and then we leverage it in our own recruitment efforts and our own marketing efforts? I think when the veterans, I mentioned Oshkosh Corp is at these events, I think you'll start to see more. John Deere has reached out and said, how can we be involved in this? How can we support it? What do you need from us in many cases? So I think that the excitement level is high, and see it as an opportunity to do more for the state.
So the flip side of that question is, how does a small local business leverage your efforts, and how do they work with you?
Absolutely. And I think this area, and Steve and I talked a little bit about it before, is already kind of on the right track, looking at the workforce that you have in the area and then identifying gaps and working, whether it's just leveraging and cross-promoting what we're doing here, but putting a Watertown spin on it and making it specific and relevant to whether it's your business or your community or the opportunities that you have. If there are places where you're advertising or you're recruiting out of state, if you can leverage some of this information. And if it's a bigger effort where there's a collaboration of like a group like this that wants to do something special, maybe it's an event or it's one of the things that we are encouraging in this next fiscal year is that we can help to fund is like a media tour. So we're wanting to work with our regional economic development partners to bring in national media writers to have a 2 to 3 day experience in that area. It has to be built around kind of something special to give them a cool opportunity, one, for a reason to want to be here, and two, to generate stories. So the CrossFit Games, the Reebok CrossFit Games were held in Madison earlier this summer. And so we were able to work with MadRep, that regional chamber, to bring in media writers. And we had one from Inc. We had like a living lifestyle magazine, a health and fitness magazine that was there, and basically immersed them in the region over a period of days and have already resulted in a significant number of articles in national publications. So that it takes a group, it takes an effort, and it is more of a regional effort, but I think that can have local impact.
All right, who else?
Hi, I have another question. So what improvements have you seen in your efforts since you have started these campaigns?
That's a great question. How are we tracking success, basically? Well, the fact that we launched the first one in January and we had 6 months, you're not going to say, oh, we had this huge movement of people from Chicago in the first 6 months of the year, because it doesn't quite work that way. But we did see a significant increase in traffic, and most of it, I think 85% of it, was from the Chicago market to the website. So people were seeing the ads, they were clicking through, they were learning more about the state. Overall, as we continue these efforts, we'll be able to track, especially with the veterans, job applications that come in, the number of people that sign up with DWD to kind of stay on their list or work with them or work with specific companies. And then as companies participate at an increasing rate, just be able to get feedback from them. How many new recruits are you finding from these events? Overall, from a migration perspective, Wisconsin in 2017 hit 6,422, I think is the exact number, positive net in migration. That is the first in a long time for the state, so there's already a positive trend that way. So continue to increase that. We want to see those numbers continue to increase over time.
All right, anyone else?
Two questions. One, do you find that other states are competing with with your market the same way? And secondly, do you have a plan to go more nationwide and even global with this campaign?
Good question. Other states. So every state, I think, is talking about this. I don't know of any state who is doing this aggressive of a marketing reach. Together, there's regions, so you'll see, some regions that are out there kind of in full force touting the area. I think like Denver specifically is one, Maryland, Vermont. So some smaller states are being aggressive, and one of the things or topics of conversation is how else do we incentivize folks to live and work here? And that's a complicated conversation, because you think of things like student loan reimbursement. Well, what about the kid that doesn't have a student loan or that worked their way through college? So how do you make that fair? So there's all those different ideas that are floating out there because everyone is very interested in this. And so you'll see others examples of this. As far as the state efforts, just to use the Hiring Our Heroes event, and the fact that this is Wisconsin is definitely a leader in this. I imagine once other states start seeing we're doing this, we won't be the only one doing this anymore. So I'm hoping that we can kind of, be first in line for many of these folks. But an example is, like, I think Indiana had a table with one gentleman there, and for some reason, with the funding, he only like 17 different types of jobs he could advertise for. So to see, like the whole big "We Want Everyone" campaign was definitely first for them. But yeah, I think as far as other markets, the global part right now, I think, is going to be concentrated on those military bases just because of dollars and resources that it would take. But as far as other parts of the United States, the next phase, I think the next iteration that you'll be seeing is targeted for areas in the U.S. where there are matches with our workforce gaps. And so we have helped to fund a study that Manpower is working on in identifying Wisconsin's labor force, where the gaps are, and then where in the U.S. those pockets of labor might be. That's the next thing that we'd probably go after when you're thinking bigger picture.
Do you have any idea how big the gap is today, numbers-wise?
Numbers-wise, if you so the best resource, and I don't know how scientific it is because of where it pulls from, but the Job Center of Wisconsin website, if the Lieutenant Governor was here, she'd be there, the totally free jobcenterofwisconsin.com. But that, when I looked last, which was about a week ago, I think there were 98,000 plus job openings on that site in every industry, everything from highly PhD researchers to line cooks, right? So it's the whole spectrum of job opportunities. And I think there were like 36,000 resumes on file in that site. So if we use that very simple example, a pretty huge gap.
All right, anyone else? You're just like my students, all quiet. All right, well, Tricia, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
I think she's able to stay for a couple minutes if you want to talk with her. I will tell you that Cassandra Shug is here with her staff from the school district. There is a referendum for the school system this fall, in November. What day is that? November 6th, right? I was checking, Jim, just making sure you knew. So she has a table out here in the hallway, and if you would like to pick up some literature, talk with them, I'm sure they would love to have you do that. And then we'll be back here October the 14th for a discussion on workforce development, which I think is very important for us. All right, thanks all for coming. Have a great day.